What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Happy Friday. We are going deep on the Duke game. We have perhaps the greatest receiver in Duke history, Miami native Connor Vernon, help break down the game from the Duke perspective. He has a lot of ties all over this game, and of course knows the game as good as anybody. Again, one of the best players Duke ever has, statistically and otherwise. Also going to talk to my man Corby and promo guy, really expert in not just picks and gambling, but the science of it, the math of it. You're going to really enjoy that segment, digging into some Miami Hurricanes related lines and helping you guys get an edge just mathematically on some of these lines as we head into the weekend. So first, some folks that are always going to try to help you get an edge in your case. That is Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine.
All right, Canes fans, very special guest joining the show today. We always go behind enemy lines here on the CanesInSight podcast with an opposing reporter. We had to take it a step further this week. We have the all-time leading receiver in Duke history, Connor Vernon, a Miami legend, Gulliver legend, just got inducted to the Gulliver Hall of Fame this week. So congratulations for that, Connor. I know that's got to be a great feeling. But appreciate you joining the show today, man. How you doing?
I'm good, brother. I appreciate you having me on. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, man. Again, this is a guy who went to Duke 2008, correct?
9. I was there from
09.
12. Yeah, 09 to 12.
So a guy who was part of taking Duke out of the depths of the ACC. And look, for years, everyone understands Duke basketball and the magnifying scope that's on it there on campus. But you were one of the reasons why Duke is no longer considered a joke matchup and someone that has given Miami issues over the years. But right now, obviously in a really nice situation with Manny Diaz up there, 6-2, coming to Miami this weekend. What's it been like, man, watching this program grow? Again, you were part of it, but Coach Cutcliffe, Coach Elko now obviously at A&M, and he's doing great things over there. And then now with Manny Diaz. But just in general, man, I mean, from being a part of it to now watching as a fan, what's it been like?
No, it's been awesome, honestly. Like to be, like you mentioned, to be part of the process of kind of, getting Duke into relevancy, because before it was always kind of just the doormat of the ACC for sure. It was kind of that game on the schedule where every team circled, all right, this is like an automatic win, for us in the win column. So to kind of see it go from there, and kind of get us out of that mediocrity to see it where it is now, to not only, in 2013, we won the Coastal, and then to not only do that, but to continue that trajectory of, 8-win, 9-win seasons, year in and year out has been, as a fan and a former player, it's been, not more than you could ask for.
So you played for Coach Cutcliffe, and then obviously he had his great run there. Mike Elko comes in, does a great job in his 1 year there, and then he's off to A&M, and then you're probably sitting there like, man, we've hit on the last couple hires. Who are they going to bring in? Manny Diaz is the guy. And you being down here in Miami, locally living here, and you hear from the Canes fans. Shout out to our boy Filete. I know he gives you hell all the time about the Canes. But when you saw Manny Diaz was hired, what was your initial thought? And again, following what happens down here, obviously it wasn't a great tenure here, but there were some positives to take out of his time. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously a big name, especially for someone like a school like Duke, having a former head coach, but also having kind of the pedigree he's had, not only, as a head coach, but also the coordinator. Everywhere he's been as a coordinator, he was successful. And then to kind of see him, and then obviously after, Miami let him go to Penn State. It's not like, he was, so he was running the defense over at Penn State, who again, another 10-win team in the Big Ten. So to kind of get that big name like that was, as a fan, was obviously, great to see that Duke was able to pull someone like that. and to kind of continue this trend, this upward trend of trajectory for Duke football. Like I definitely think he, and clearly he's, the proof is in the pudding as far as like what he's putting out there right now. I'm sure Duke couldn't be happier with the hire.
Now, when you were in school, the offense was, it was a very prolific offense. Coach Cutcliffe, we understand his background working with quarterbacks and the offensive mind that he is. Elko comes in. He's more of a defensive guy. And then Manny, obviously a defensive guy as well. So talk to me a little bit about that, the defensive side of the ball, what you've seen out of them this year. It's been a really strong unit. You look at the scores of their games, and we'll get into the offense in a little bit, but defensively, what have you seen from this Manny Diaz unit?
Yeah, kind of picking up exactly where it left off with Elko. That was one of the things I would say was always the biggest surprise for me, especially being a football fan and a former player and just kind of understanding the game, where it's seeing how getting the most out of, less in a way, not to say that Duke football players are less, but I'm saying that getting the best out of each and every one of your guys. Because on paper, you look at, you compare a Miami roster to a Duke roster, and on paper, it's not, you're going to see on that Miami roster, all kinds of big names, high school touted dudes, where Duke, you're going to kind of see a mix of a little bit of everything. And so to be able to kind of lift those guys up and to put them in positions and coach them right, that's always been I would say the strength of Duke football teams is the coaching, as far as, getting the most of their players and getting guys in positions and scheming up and game planning and knowing those guys are going to execute. And Elko did it, brilliantly. Again, he won, I think we won 9 games. His first year beat UCF in the bowl game. And then his second year, he won another 8 games and then, went to A&M. But just to see our defense kind of, hasn't lost a step at all in here with Manny. I think we lead. I think we have like 24 sacks on the year. Our front seven's legit. We have 24 sacks on the year.
Second in the country in tackles for loss.
Yeah, there you go, right there. Second in the country for tackles for loss. Our linebackers are legit. We have 2 seniors kind of running that show over there who again, touted guys, just been in the system long enough, have a lot of game experience. And then even in our secondary, I think I want to say we have a turnover a game, something like that, like on average, at least. I think we have like 9 total turnovers. And we had 6 last week, against SMU, a good offensive team in SMU. And so just to kind of see those guys, continue to cut week in and week out and continue to, execute the game plan and stuff like that. It's obviously, paying dividends on the field.
I'm sure you've watched some of Miami and Cam Ward. Their offense has been pretty explosive this year. Obviously, Manny, we know that he likes to send pressure from all different ways, right? And as a quarterback, that can be a bit confusing. We've seen teams, especially early in the season, try to do that against him as well. Do you see that kind of being the game plan? Obviously, getting after Cam Ward has to be a top priority, but Miami has to also know that Manny is an aggressive defensive coordinator. So how do you see that battle between Miami's offense and then Manny's defensive scheme kind of playing out?
For sure, I'm sure. I'm obviously not in the coaches meetings, but I'm sure there's obviously Manny for sure has a lot of familiarity with with these guys, or a few of them. Some of them, obviously not Cam Ward because he just got there, but I'm sure there's a lot of familiarity there and kind of knowing what they want to do and stuff like that. So I'm sure he's got a good scheme coming in. But yeah, obviously, Cam Ward is, an elite player, in a league of his own per se. A Heisman contender, the whole thing. You could go down the list of accolades, and he's fulfilled them all. I'm a Duke fan, but I'm also, I grew up in Miami, so I want to see the Canes successful. Obviously not this week. It's a kind of a different case this week, but, kind of seeing, him week in and week out, he's a superstar. So he's obviously someone I'm sure they are going to really try to scheme up and game plan to try to make it uncomfortable for him as much as possible. And he's someone, the biggest thing for me, and I'm sure they've had it, and just being, a former player and the whole thing, defensively, it's going to be the biggest challenge is going to be kind of those 3rd and mediums and 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 10s, where, to get that offense off the field, and, him being able to kind of have his legs as a weapon to pick up first downs and things of that nature. So trying to keep him kind of, I would say, as much in the pocket as possible would be at least my hope to see. Just because again, there's nothing more of a gut punch, on that defensive side of the ball to be 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, get these guys off the field, and then a scramble drill or something, and they pick up the first down. That there's nothing faster that takes the wins out of the sails of a defense. So hopefully to kind of limit as much of those as possible.
Yeah, we've seen Cam Ward do that a lot, get out of the pocket. Once the initial pressure comes and he can escape it, then things break down outside of the play design, and he's been making plays. And it's a really interesting matchup, Connor, because Miami's been the best in the country in avoiding tackles for loss. So they've stayed out of those 3rd and long situations, 3rd and, like you said, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10 plus for the most part. But look, if Duke can get some pressure early and kind of throw him off the game a little bit, it will be interesting to see. Let's talk about the offense a little bit. I know you're obviously, again, all-time leading receiver in Duke history, still have the record over Jamison Crowder, 3-time all-conference player as well. So you can definitely talk offensive side of the football with the best of them. It hasn't been the most consistent offense, I would say, this year, just looking at the numbers that they've put up. Malik Murphy coming over from Texas, a lot of talent, was the backup over there, but showed a lot of ability in his opportunities that he did get. It seems like he's picking it up a little bit now. Obviously, it's not everyone's going to hit the ground running like Cam Ward and put up these insane numbers right off the bat, but 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the season, completion percentage just under 60%. But what have you seen from Malik Murphy and that offense? I mean, do you think it's starting to come together a little bit over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously last week was tough.
SMU, that was tough.
Yeah, just to, I mean, again, we had 6 turnovers on defense and kind of didn't really capitalize on that. Special teams was a little bit rough as well in that game. But to your point, I mean, he's come in. I mean, I think it was a big land for a school like Duke, because again, like, especially in this new landscape with NIL and transfer portal and things of that nature, there's that's a premium, right? Quarterbacks are a premium now in college. So to get a guy like that who came from a program like Texas, who had 2 years at Texas, had some game time at Texas as well, like you said, came in and won 2 games when Ewers was hurt, was able to kind of keep them, so get that game experience, and then to come to Texas to Duke, when you scale it, it's kind of like, hey, like, this was a big fish, from a Duke perspective, and he's done that. I mean, I want to say, yeah, he's 8-2 as a starter, so you can't take, you can't undermine that. Like, and coming into a new system, you got a new group of receivers to get accustomed to. So yeah, it takes time. I mean, we're getting into week 8 of the season, and so I like what I'm seeing. I mean, we throw it around, we run it well. Like, we're kind of very balanced in that regard. And it's coming along. I mean, I would say the one thing, and again, I'm not breaking down the tape with these guys or anything like that, but I think our red zone, us in the red zone could be more efficient. And I think that's one of the things that's, if you look at the Georgia Tech loss and even the SMU loss, it was just making one less play in the red zone and stuff like that. I mean, we're 2 plays away, from being 8-0. So when you look at it from that perspective, we definitely have a good team, and we definitely have, working with something.
Miami's secondary has struggled at times this year, young units, some injuries, but just they haven't been great. Looking at receivers like Jordan Moore, Eli Pankel, Quayshawn Brown, any of these guys stand out, and for someone who played the receiver position at an extremely high level, who would you be watching if you're a Miami fan this weekend?
I mean, I think Jordan Moore, like, as a Duke receiver, I think that's whoever matches up with him will be a good battle. I mean, he's legit. He's a senior on this Duke team, so he's been around long enough. He's got a lot of experience. I think he'll get a shot at the next level, for sure. So I think that whoever matches up with him. I think the biggest challenge, honestly, for Duke offensively is going to be Miami's front seven. I don't think that's a big secret. I think that's been the strength of that defense all year long. They got, from left end to right end, everyone and everyone in between is legit on that front seven. So I think Duke's offensive line is going to have their hands full. So I think if we could develop some type of running game with Star Thomas, who, he's had a good year too, another transfer guy who's come in and he's had a successful year. I mean, I think he's averaging almost, 4.5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So our offensive run game has been effective. So I think if we're able to kind of develop that early and kind of keep those, keep the front seven up and, open up some things it'll open up some things in the back for us.
Yeah, I think, like you said, that Miami defensive line against the offensive line of Duke will be an interesting battle. And look, kind of summarizing this whole thing, if Duke has a real chance to win this game, what's the blueprint to me? I mean, from my perspective, I look at it and say they can't fall behind early, because you fall. They get a turnover early, they can get on the board, muck things up a little bit. Then I think it could get interesting. But from your perspective, what's the pathway to a Duke win here?
You never want to get down early, to be honest, because that that just becomes an uphill battle. But ironically, Duke has played well from behind all year. They've been behind. I mean, I know it was UConn. They came from behind against Northwestern in overtime. UNC,
that was a crazy.
UNC. They were 21-7 at half, and we were able to come back and win that one. Or 20-7 at half, we were able to come back and win that one. Even Georgia Tech, they got down, I think they were down 10-0 at Georgia Tech, and were able to kind of, fight back a little bit. But you never want to be down early, especially like even as an offensive guy, it's you never want to try to play catch up. You definitely want to set the tone and come out and try to execute as much as possible, because it just puts more pressure on them, because now when you're playing from behind, the game plan might switch up a little bit as far as, the play calling goes, and as far as kind of like what we came into this game with. And now all of a sudden we got to scrap that because now, we're playing from behind. So I think they, hopefully could come out, quick and fast and put the pressure on Miami, because the reality of the situation, Duke's got nothing to lose. Miami has everything to lose here. And so to kind of play like just free and come in with a good plan and, have them let that thing fly and see what happens.
Yeah, listen, Murphy's got ability. If he can get some confidence early, then he might, look like a dangerous threat. It seems like their quarterbacks tend to have their best games against Miami. I don't know if defense or, I mean, look, as a former player though, can you speak real quick on like playing Miami and understanding, even if Miami's not at their best, right? Like it has to mean a little something more, because you understand the tradition. And I mean, look, you're from Miami, so I'm sure you had a little bit more fuel to your fire when you played them. But just in general, like, what is that mindset like for these Duke players, knowing that you're playing at Miami, and I mean the tradition that surrounds the program?
For sure. I mean, it obviously I came up, the Miami of my era was, why I fell in love with football, kind of that late 90s to early 2000s. And I mean, a lot of these kids now playing, aren't necessarily, don't know the glory days of that era, but I mean, they have the highlights, they see it, and obviously, throughout the media and the whole thing. But even now, I mean, fast forward to now, considering, this team's 8-0, or Miami's 8-0, in the driver's seat of the ACC, obviously has big college football playoff implications. They the Heisman Trophy candidate. So like the stakes couldn't be any higher, for this Duke team and coming into it. And then when you add on, Manny coming into town, kind of the older, I'm sure it might not be, I'm sure Manny's not going to make this.
He's downplaying it. He's downplaying, but you got to know it's back. It's there.
Like he's not going to make this about him at all, but it's definitely going to be the elephant in the room. It's no secret, it wasn't I wouldn't say it wasn't even from the media perspective, and even from an optics perspective, being in Miami, I wouldn't say it was the prettiest breakup. I'm sure there was some type of, mixed feelings there. So I'm sure that's definitely going to, play into it. And they're definitely using that to fuel the fire. Absolutely. And the reality of the situation, like I said, it's, this is a chance for them to kind of throw a wrench in that college football playoff picture for Miami, especially now with no conferences, if there's a chance, it's the best two teams go. So if
Yeah.
it could be a possibility that maybe this throws a wrench in even the ACC championship picture, the whole thing. So like I mean, again, I don't think there's going to be any needed extra motivation for this game in the Duke locker room, considering when you factor all these things in. So I'm excited for Saturday. We'll see what happens.
And look, we're talking about there's a lot of motivation for Duke, but Duke's 6-2 right now too. It's not like they're a middle of the pack ACC team or lower level team right now. They have a lot to play for, regardless of who they're up against. So I think that definitely makes this matchup interesting. Last thing before I let you, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your former teammate at Gulliver and at Duke, Don Varner, who's on Miami's coaching staff. For those who are unaware, Coach Cristobal has shouted him out in press conferences before. Miami's receiver unit doing great. He works with the receivers. He's an analyst on the offensive side of the ball. But Don Varner, man, I mean, you got any good stories you could share about him? and for the Canes fans who are unaware of his work, what kind of guy does Miami have in there?
I mean, I have a story for days. probably some I can't share publicly, but no, he's the best. I mean, he's like he was an integral part in me even going to Duke. Obviously him coming from Gulliver, we had a great relationship at Gulliver, and then he went to Duke, and then so it was definitely a level of comfort there on my whole recruiting visits and stuff like that. With him being there, and then obviously he had success his freshman year at Duke, and seeing that as well, kind of played a role into this is the start of the turnaround, and he's always just been a guy that's shown up every day, put his head down and worked, especially at Duke. Like he had that motivation, he had that grind to be the best. I mean, we definitely brought the best out of each other as far as being he was the slot guy, I was the outside, so kind of being comparable in that regard. And then just to kind of see him carry it over. I mean, I visited him. He was at ECU as a GA with Scotty Montgomery, who used to be our old coach. So I took a visit there one time, post football, to see him. He was there with Cedric Irvin as well, another Miami guy. You guys know Ced, and kind of go see those dudes, and seeing him start off there as the GA role, and seeing the work ethic transition, and then learning, just picking pieces of a little bit of everything and kind of taking it with him. And then seeing him now at Miami, I'm sure he's probably living the dream as far as like being back home, closer to family, the whole thing. And again, you're coaching the team that you grew up on. Everyone, Don was in my era as well, as far as like kind of that late 90s, early 2000s Miami, where, those guys were gods, literally gods to us. And to kind of see it come full circle for him, I mean, I couldn't be happier for him. Like I hope he is, I know he's a hell of a coach. I know all those receivers have a lot of nice things to say about him. I see it through like social media and stuff like that. So I know he's doing a really good job over there with them. And I mean, I wish him the best. I hope he gets, any job
except this weekend.
Yeah. I hope I'm actually going to be there. So I hope to see him for sure in the pregame, down on the field. But hopefully, hopefully after this season or whenever his time's right for him, he gets, another job somewhere that he's, the wide receivers coach, because he definitely deserves it. And he could coach any receiving core in the country. That's for sure.
Yeah, heard a lot of great things about him from people there. So I'm sure that opportunity is coming. Connor Vernon, man, thank you so much. Doing great things in the financial world these days after football, after you broke all those records at Duke, and should be an interesting one this weekend, man. So appreciate you hopping on once again.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. This was fun.
Great stuff from Connor Vernon there, taking us inside the field of the Duke program. Again, great player over there. And it's nice to hear former players' perspective on what's happening over there at Duke under Manny Diaz. So before we get to our betting segment, wanted to get to our Beacon Adjusters player of the game. My prediction here is that Xavier Restrepo at the wide receiver spot had his quietest game of the year last week against Florida State. 4 receptions, 24 yards. Miami's passing offense as a whole was not very prolific against the Noles. Obviously just ran the ball down their throats, but I think Restrepo has a bounce back game. 120, 140 yards maybe. I think he has a couple big plays downfield, really picks apart this Duke defense, and couple scores. I think Miami wins this game 40-13 is my prediction. I think Xavier Restrepo has a big part of that. So he is my Beacon Adjusters player of the game. And again, beaconadjusters.com. If you want to reach out to them, I'm pulling up the website here real quick. Beacon Adjusters. If your property has been affected by Hurricane Helene or Milton, Beacon Adjusters Group is here to help. With years of experience handling storm-related damage, we work tirelessly to ensure you get the compensation you deserve. From assessment to settlement, our team of trusted experts will guide you every step of the way. Don't face the aftermath alone. Let Beacon Adjusters Group restore your peace of mind. Call us today, 954-249-9747. And again, Beacon Adjusters Group. Xavier Restrepo is going to be my prediction for Beacon Adjusters Player of the Game.
All right. One thing I know about CanesInSight fans from browsing the forums, checking Twitter, is a lot of you guys like to lay a wager now and then. So we have two very, very special guests, national names to help you make the best picks, starting with my man Promo Guy. You can see him on Twitter. He's got a huge presence there, Discord. And then Corby, the founder of Better Odds. These guys are pros at finding the best odds nationally. They scour the lines. It's almost down to a science. And we're going to talk about some specific lines. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it.
Now, some of you who read CanesInsight.com may have seen an article that I posted with a ton of specific lines, betting preview. Pete, pull that one up. We're going to go through just a couple lines here, more than a couple lines from the game, and get the expert take on the probabilities, what is the best play, what lines jump out, all that kind of stuff. Help you with your betting as you get ready for the Miami Duke game at noon. So let's start here, man. First thing that jumps out to me, looking at the money line. I mean, minus 1,400. That's probably not going to get you anywhere. But the spread is interesting. This is basically the same spread, give or take a couple points, as the FSU game last week. Duke's got a much better record than FSU, obviously much more momentum. What do you see with this spread here with Duke and Miami?
Yeah, it's an interesting game. I think a lot of people are going to run to the fences and assume that Miami's good here. The average public perception would be this is a Duke team that's better than Florida State. I think just from a market standpoint, somebody who doesn't look at lines would find this spread fascinating. Is that Duke doesn't have as much talent as Florida State. So I would say usually the market is right. This feels like a game that ends 20 and a half. The most logical number by using odds is a 37-15, 37-14 type game. It makes a lot of sense. I think Miami's cleaning it up. And me, I thought it was funny we chose this day to do the show. I am actually a former Dookie. I have a Malik Murphy Heisman ticket, so I can talk as bad as I want on the team who has looked worse than I thought they would. It's a spot where it would be Miami or nothing for me. That 20 and a half, though, I'm sure y'all are going to be sweating at 20 and a half. That's one of those numbers that all game, even in the fourth quarter, you're not too comfortable with.
Yeah, I think I saw when we posted this article, a few people say, wow, I can't believe that this line is so high. You look at Duke, I guess it's a little bit of the opposite of what Corby's saying, but you look at Duke and they're 6-2. I think most Miami fans feel, man, we're sweating every single week. We haven't really dominated anyone in a while, even though Miami did cover against Florida State. How can you justify a 6-2 revenge Manny Diaz team who just took SMU more than to the wire, to lose by 3 touchdowns? But I do think that Vegas in general, maybe Miami fans feel this more than anyone, feels that turnovers aren't necessarily the most replicable thing. And that really what are a lot of Miami's advanced metrics, which are off the chart. Even the defense statistically isn't really that bad. So I think, it's just giving up a lot of explosives. So I think statistically, people, or Vegas, the guys that are doing this, that are sharp, are saying, yeah, Duke has probably not performed 21 points worse than Miami has this year. But a lot of the metrics that we see as more predictable say that Miami should outperform them by 21 points, with the home field going forward.
Now, let me understand. There's math involved here. I'm not a math guy, but I'm seeing it here on the article. I know you guys have both referenced it, so I want to get into some of that. The first thing Corey said was you basically work backwards to what the final score should be based on the collective odds, looking at the spread and other things. How did you get to that final score just based on the odds?
Yeah, so as you can see in the article, Promo Guy did a good job in tossing some softballs for those who don't understand odds. You can take what was the total? 55.5.
54.5, yeah.
54.5. So you can assume, okay, if it's 54.5 and one of the teams is projected to lose by 21, what is the final score there? It would be 34-21. That's not right.
No.
Quick math.
You're going to have to edit that out. It's 37.5 and 16.5.
Got it. So there's also the implied probability there. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we put that out there to help people who aren't, a lot of gambling terminology, odds, a lot of it can be very overwhelming. And what we really wanted to give the readers at CanesInSight was a reasonable expectation of what, the average game looks like, what the expectations are for this game. So we kind of transferred a lot of the odds into probabilities, which is all gambling is, right? A lot of people like to bet games. Oh, I love Miami this week. I'll take them at whatever number it opens at, where Corby and I's thinking is a lot more about the numbers that you can get and what those probabilities, are implied from that. So for example, like you mentioned, like the team total, the chances of Miami scoring 38 plus points are 50.5% because the team total is 37.5 and that's minus 118 at minus 114. So it's slightly favored to the over because they're putting a bit more juice on the over. Malik Murphy to, his 1.5 passing touchdowns line is plus 182 at minus 250. So that's Vegas saying there's a 32.8% chance, give or take, that Malik Murphy throws for 2+ touchdowns.
Got it. Stepping away from the math to the game part of it, again, I'm not a math guy. I'm looking at that spread, just knowing these two teams. I'm thinking you have an offense in Duke that isn't very good statistically. You have an offense with Miami that is outstanding statistically. So if the offense for Duke is not scoring or controlling the ball, you're giving the offense for Miami more chances to score. So even though Duke's strength is defense, because Miami's offense is so dominant and because Duke's offense is going to likely not be able to exploit Miami's weaknesses on defense, that might be why the spread is what it is. Is that, and again, this is from just a football standpoint, not knowing how the odds work. Is that something that comes into play? Is that how you guys see it here?
Yeah, that's honestly a lot more Corby's world, where a lot of what I do as the promo guy is assume that there are a bunch of really smart people who create these lines and who bet into these lines, and ultimately they become relatively efficient. And then from there, I try and find you edges, whether it's through promos, whether it's through books that are a bit off market, or even SGP correlation stuff, which is a whole conversation for a whole different day. Corby is a lot more creating models and being one of those smart people that bets into the lines that creates an efficient market. So maybe Corby could better speak to exactly like what his model says for this game and what went into that.
Yeah, I'll break it down like the most simple form of the two factors that we're talking about. So first, what Better Odds does, what Promo Guys does, and like kind of the nerd of it that we try to just softball toss people at Better Odds is like you see these implied probabilities. So like let's say Cam Ward is minus 110. He's to get 2 touchdowns. He's expected to do that 52%. 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he's expected to do that 53% of the time. What our tool is doing is shopping every price in the market as quickly as possible to watch every sports book that there is and say, hey, every sports book in the world thinks that this should happen 52% of the time. This sports book messed up, and they'll give you the price of it happening X% of the time. And we find that differential when you say, hey, if every sports book is great at what they do, and we could all assume they're pretty good at what they do, this one sports book that's just a random price over here is probably a really good value bet. And so that's what we do at Better Odds. That's what we're trying to find the best price relative to what the market is. From a standpoint of like how you talk, why Duke might be this big of a number, is their defense, are they giving the ball up I do agree with you. The main thing when it comes to sports is like what is replicable and what is kind of phony. So like if you go look at Duke, yes, their defense is 30th in the nation in all the defensive metrics. They're basically top 25 in everything. But if you go look at advanced metrics, like things that are going to prove what they can do over the test of time, they're 70th in the nation in defensive EPA. Like I don't actually think this is that talented of a group. And it's a guy that has Duke futures. They've won 6 games, and I would say that's probably over. Like if you had to play this season over again, I don't think they're 6-2. If you play this season over again, I talked to Promo Guy plenty of times about this. I think Miami's defense in most games that you play again is even better than we've seen. So this is just what the odds are is a simulation of, okay, if Duke Miami was played 1,000 times, how good do we think this Duke team is? How good do we think this Miami team is? And honestly, the 21 points better. Like I think this price it might seem crazy to the person who doesn't watch a ton, but Miami is this good.
Guys, I have a quick question on the Heisman odds here. As we see right now, Cam Ward listed the third favorite behind Travis Hunter and Dylan Gabriel. Is that because if you look at Dylan Gabriel's numbers compared to Ward's numbers, Ward pretty much has him in every category. Is that the odds makers sort of projecting Miami loses a game here? Because I find it hard to believe that if Miami wins out with Cam Ward, as does Oregon, and the numbers are where they are right now, that Cam Ward doesn't win. And obviously there's Travis Hunter involved there, but I'm looking specifically at Gabriel and Ward there.
Yeah, it's funny because that's what jumped out to D-Money as well, with Cam Ward being behind Gabriel. And I think you're absolutely right. Like I think if the Heisman were given out today, well, it would probably go to Hunter or even Genty. But I do think that there's a bit of projection here. Not necessarily that Miami will definitely lose a game, but with the ACC championship game included, like that certainly comes into play. And Gabriel's numbers are maybe close enough where people are like, okay, if we're looking at a Miami team that has a loss. And one thing that we didn't include in the cheat sheet that I meant to was there are, there are odds for Miami to go undefeated in the regular season. So their next 4 games, and that's basically implied at like 59% right now. So it's not necessarily Vegas saying, oh, they're definitely going to lose a game, but they have a better chance than Oregon to lose a game. And even if Oregon loses a game because of the Ohio State win, Oregon will still be a top 5 team almost definitely when this all finishes out. Whereas, yeah, if Cam Ward slows down statistically, like we started to see in the Florida State game, doesn't have that huge gap over Gabriel, and Miami comes into this with a loss, whether in the regular season or the ACC championship game, I think at least what Vegas is saying is that the narrative is going to move towards Gabriel, who was a much bigger favorite heading into the season.
Now, we got a lot of people that are more casual gamblers, in terms of they know spreads, they know money line. A concept like arbitrage, you use it here in the article. Can you explain, whether it's Promo Guy, Corby, whoever wants to take it, the concept of arbitrage to the average fan?
Yeah, so basically what you're doing is finding as we kind of talked about earlier, is like there are sportsbooks that price this thing all over the place. Usually they're in a pretty tight group, but sometimes you'll find something like this game that we put in the article. Promo Guy, if you can see what it is, I can't.
Yeah,
I believe it's score first.
I can jump in here. So there were 2 bets that the Better Odds website tool, whatever you want to call it, identified as really good bets in this Miami game. The first one is Duke under 13.5. That was just more of what Corby was talking about earlier, which is they were bid on an island. I think I noted here, DraftKings minus 200 plus 140. So if you bet Duke under 13.5 points, let's say you put $100 on it at DraftKings, you would win 140 if Duke scored under 13.5. If you bet it at Bet365, you would get $210. So that is, obviously a significant difference. Fanatics is similar to DraftKings, minus 210 plus 160. So this was one of those, okay, Bet365 is a bid on an island. If, we were looking to take a bet in this game, Duke under 13.5 points at plus 210 would be, something that we would call likely a plus EV bet, positive expected value. Now, arbitrage, to D-Money's question, is when you can make a risk-free profit. So the one that our arbitrage tool, bot, whatever you want to call it, identified was Miami to score first on Bet365 at -210, and then Duke to score first on DraftKings. These are two of the biggest books out there. Like, I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that you can make free money betting just, on two big books in a relatively major game. And this has been up now for at least 48 hours. So you could bet $210 to win 100 on Bet365 that Miami's going to score first in the game. And you could bet 100 to win 240 that Duke will score first on DraftKings. And that way you will either make, $30 or zero. And you can obviously set it up where it's like 15 either way or whatever. I was just making the numbers to be round. But this is the kind of thing that, you have to be careful with running into limits. But otherwise, it's a way to really grow your bankroll, make money, and like not even have to sweat the outcome. You don't care what Cam Ward does or, how many turnovers happen in the game, whatever. As long as somebody scores first, which is obviously guaranteed, you will make money on this game just by betting at these two places, two major sports books. So that's the kind of powerful thing that this tool does that can, make you your money back very quickly. Not that with a 90% off code, there's really an entry fee here, but that's what arbitrage means. And it's used in the financial markets, and it's obviously used in sports betting as well.
Arbitrage. Yeah, I was calling it arbitrage. Now I got the classy pronunciation. That's why we brought you guys on. So again, this promo code CIS, and best way to use that, we're going to have the link in the description for better odds. Again, promo code CIS, you get 90% off your first month. And look, this is not just for content that you consume. This is ways to potentially make money with some risk, or in some cases with very, very little risk, like Promo Guy just explained. So real quick before I let you guys go, just, explain to the listeners, and we'd love to have you guys on some more just to go through these lines as we get closer to the college football playoff, hopefully with Miami continuing to perform. But, just explain a little more about what you guys do and how you could help listeners potentially make money and have fun on college football and other sports.
Yeah. So another caveat is we will be doing these previews of Miami games. So I'm excited to do this. Like, this is the first time we've done this. I'm excited to just preview every Miami game, drop the information like we did this week, and continue doing that. I think it's going to find a lot of use case. We see the replies, continue those. I'm excited to have a face to the name who's helping make these articles. We'll try to be in the replies and talk sports, because it's what we enjoy doing in the day. But yeah, better odds. The main goal is to find those extreme outliers for you. At the end of the day, if you're taking good prices, if you can get something on a discounted rate, in any case, it's probably going to be of expected value. We do the math so that you don't have to. We will softball it toss you. It has a link to the exact bet itself. We do everything we can to make this the easiest process for you. No, everyone loves sports. Everyone doesn't love the math of betting. We try to blend those two things so you can enjoy those sports and hopefully make a little bit of money.
Yeah. Don't have too much to add other than, if and when you sign up, there's a video taking you exactly how to use the tool. Feel free to DM Corby or myself, at the promo guy 123 on Twitter, and we'd be super happy to help walk you through it. We totally understand that a lot of people are newer to sports betting, and we're here to help.
That is Better Odds. That is the promo guy. You can see the Miami Hurricanes betting preview for free on CanesInSight.com. So really excited to have you guys on, learn more. As you can tell, I'm an amateur with this kind of stuff. Again, I'm used to the spread, the over-under, and that's about it. So the whole science of it, I'm really learning about. So appreciate you guys helping me along the way. I love having you guys on. I know there's a lot of connections here between Corby and Duke. So we'll enjoy this game. We'll see how it all plays out. Again, promo guy, Corby, appreciate you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Go Canes. Good luck.
This an insight to the Canes, and you know we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew. Down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news. Cause it's all about the you. And nobody do it like CanesInSight. Nobody do it like CanesInSight.